It's up!
Ladies and gentlemen, drop it. All right, fun power panel all in the studio in hour one. Jake Uger and the two epics, Epic 1, Epic 2. John Idarola, Michael Schur with you guys. Damage Report, of course, starts all of our programming at 1 o'clock Eastern. Check it out.
Starts and ends at, I say.
But nonetheless, he's here.
But you're here for some reason.
Yeah,
so,
this is coasting.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right, guys, you know Trump got indicted. You know there's going to be giant reactions. You know we've got that. You know we have a QAnon conspiracy later that involves diapers. Everybody knows this stuff. And then we've got Dumb and Dumber. Boebert went on Rubin's show. There's a teen pregnancy somewhere in there. You got to put your mind behind figuring out how that led to a teen pregnancy. But anyways, we'll explain all that in the show. Crazy, wild stuff. Hence the news. Forward.
The news. We're starting off with the diaper story. I'm kidding. Let's jump into this.
He is now going to go through the process of getting arrested. And I think that that is going to be much more jarring for him than I think people realize. This is somebody who has spent more than 4 decades trying to avoid being arrested or being indicted. And so this is a really scary moment for him, despite whatever he says.
Yes, according to Maggie Haberman, behind the scenes, Donald Trump is incredibly scared, but the image that he's putting forward, especially on social media, is designed to give you a very different impression. I'm gonna classify it as rage, really. You might not have seen his initial messages after the 34 indictments were announced. He said, these thugs and radical left monsters have just indicated the 45th president of the United States. This is an attack on our country, the likes of which has never been seen before. Forget Pearl Harbor, that was nothing. I'm kidding, I added that part. And he says, of course, that because he's now been indicted, the US is a third world nation. I thought we were a third world nation for like 20 different reasons he's already talked about over the last year. So he said that, and he's been reposting just every single second of Fox News and those sorts of sites over the last day or so. He also asked a question. I guess he got distracted, like kind of a squirrel moment where he just asked, where's Hunter? No word on if he ever got an answer or what the hell that has to do with his legal troubles, but it's what he's thinking about at this point. Now, in the next couple of days, specifically as we approach Tuesday, no word on what he'll be thinking about then. I assume that the leaks will start over the weekend, but it will be Tuesday when he will actually be hauled before court, unless he decides to hunker down in a basement of Mar-a-Lago or something. He will be fingerprinted. He will have a mugshot taken. Although I know everyone is expecting now that we're just necessarily going to get that. I do not believe that New York law generally leads to the release of the mugshot. It could be leaked, sometimes they are, but we won't necessarily have those. What we will have come Tuesday is details of what those 34 indictments actually include, and we'll have a much better idea of the timeline going forward.
All right, I have a confession, and you guys are not going to be surprised by my confession. I kind of love that Trump is scared, and I told you he would be. Like, people put way too much strategy into Donald Trump's head. There's only 2 brain cells bumping around there. They hardly ever meet. And whenever they do, it's always about marketing and being in the spotlight and making his case in the most aggressive way possible. And that has served him well. But that's all he's got. He's a one-trick pony. And he's not like, oh, I'd love to be indicted to because I'm a master strategist and rook to bishop 3 gets me. No, he's like Haberman said, his whole life he's been a criminal. Well, she didn't say that, but I'm saying it. And for 4 decades he's been trying to avoid the law. And he talks like a mobster. He says, "Oh, we don't like the rats. We don't like the snitches." I mean, he says stuff like that. By the way, he also said, "I mean, who takes the Fifth Amendment? People who are guilty." Then he took the Fifth Amendment like 400 times in one of these cases. Okay, so you get an overall sense of it. But like a lot of these bullies and fake tough guys, the minute he's in trouble. Remember when there was just the protests around Black Lives Matter protests around the White House? He went and hid in the bunker. He's a grade A coward. Right, it's just that no one's ever punched him back in the nose. And so now that he got, grazed, or the thought that he might have to actually face some consequences, he's like, and everybody from inside's like, well, some of them say he's scared, some of them say he's angry. All of them talk about he's going through a lot of emotions right now. This is your tough guy, MAGA. Enjoy.
Yeah, and it's the great equalizer for someone who has never had to play on the level playing field, right? Is that he is now going to court. He's now going to be judged not on what kind of president he is, what kind of candidate he is, what he's saying, how he's making fun of his opponents. He's going to be judged on the law, and there are 34 counts against him, which also means that there's a lot that none of us know except the people, because no one was expecting this many counts. And based on what we do know and what we have read and the alleged allegations and the things that Michael Cohen has said publicly and whatever has been leaked, we didn't know 34 counts worth of things. So that means this is probably worse. And I think that's informing John and Cenk why he is more scared than you would imagine this sort of behemoth to be.
Yeah, well, I'm obviously not a lawyer. I think everybody knows that at first glance. But they did
actually look like a lawyer.
Yeah, really? Today you kind of do. Yeah.
Okay, well then maybe if you've been involved in a personal injury or rideshare accident. Anyway, I live too close to LAX. So anyway, look, when he paid back Michael Cohen, they split it up into a bunch of different payments. Is it possible that maybe it's for each time they did that, each of those is a falsification of business records? I'm not sure. We do know that hush money payments are not illegal in New York for some reason. Seems like the sort of thing you'd set up if you were wealthy and you were in charge. But Trump could be charged with falsifying the business records of the Trump organization, mislabeling basically what they're intended to accomplish. They were intended to accomplish to pay back Michael Cohen for taking out a home equity loan to pay off Stormy Daniels. Falsifying business records is just a misdemeanor. Again, it's the way you'd set it up if you were in charge, wouldn't you, if you were powerful? But his attorney says that despite the idea that maybe he could reach some sort of plea agreement or something like that, he is not going to be doing that. He's not going to be admitting any guilt whatsoever. Take a look.
Do you expect this to go to trial? Do you see any scenario in which you or the former president would take a plea deal?
Zero. First of all, I'm not taking a plea deal to anything, but President Trump will not take a plea deal in this case. It's not going to happen. There's no crime. I don't know if it's going to make the trial because we have substantial legal challenges that we have to front before we get to that point.
So look, in theory, I guess they could reach some sort of plea deal if that's something that Alvin Bragg and they're interested in. I don't know that it is. I haven't heard them talk about it, but that might potentially release this weight from his shoulders. It wouldn't be any help in the other, impending lawsuits, whether it's, the rape lawsuit that's going to be coming up very soon, the possibility that indictments could come down from Fulton County. And it would, in theory, if you cared about whether a politician had committed crimes, it would reassure some of his followers that it wasn't that serious. I don't know how many of them actually care. Donald Trump seems to relish the idea that he could still beat Ron DeSantis while facing these sorts of charges. Again, I don't think that he actually wants to go to prison or anything like that. But I wonder, is he scared enough to admit guilt, which he definitely doesn't want to do, but has been forced to do in lawsuits in the past, civil lawsuits?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point that he does at some point sometimes cut bait, right? So both on Trump University and Trump Charity, both enormous scams where he had to pay tens of millions of dollars in fines and admit guilt. He did. He was like, "Oh, okay, you caught me." It was like almost like the kid with his hand in the cookie jar. He's like, "No, it's not a fake charity. No. Oh, you've got all the evidence? Okay, fine, it is. What do I do? Okay, do I get spanked? Do I go to detention? What do I do?" Right? And so he had to pay it. By the way, guys, I mean, look, this is my main point overall anyway. MAGA, look, I understand how it started, right? You guys wanted someone to drain the swamp. You hate the establishment. You're not wrong. They are lying to you. So you got really mad and you wanted to find someone who would tell the establishment off. But how it's going is you're now defending a guy who clearly broke the law in like half a dozen ways because he was the former president. And you're saying the former president, an elite, should not be held to the same standards as the rest of us.
Yep.
That's the exact opposite of where you started. So get back on course, right? Like you actually, the Republicans in 1,000 different ways could kick the Democrats' ass if they actually just stuck with their anti-corruption messaging, right? And I don't mean the Republican politicians, they're awful. They're more corrupt than the Democrats are. But you guys found someone who would say the words drain the swamp. Good instinct, right? Can you please pick a non-crook? Like, so look, our problem on the left is we don't have anyone with courage to actually take on the establishment. Every time the media yells at them or Pelosi or Biden yells at them, they got to rush out and get those diapers we're going to talk about later in the show, okay? And they get so nervous. Oh my God, what if cable news says mean things about me? You guys, on the other hand, you don't have that problem. You say anything you want, right? But you have the problem if you constantly pick con men, right? This guy's like legendary. He makes P.T. Barnum look like child's play. He's the greatest con man in American history. That's another compliment I can give Donald Trump. Of course he slept with her, you know that. Of course he did the hush money payments, you know that. Of course it breaks campaign finance laws, you know that. Funneling $420,000 back to Michael Cohen, he says he went to prison for it, that's his co-conspirator. He says, yeah, of course that wasn't for legal expenses. It was to pay off Stormy Daniels. And it's on tape, you all know he did it. And your only fallback position is, yeah, but Democrats do it too. Hey, listen, if you got a case of a Democrat breaking the law, and there are many, I'm gonna be on your, the progressives are gonna be on your side. We don't want them. We don't want the crooks. The establishment Democrats are a different story. That's their problem, not my problem, okay? But I'm asking everybody, I know it's impossible to be honest. No, we constantly have to pick teams and say, no, my guy's right, come hell or high water. No, he isn't right. He definitely broke these laws. And guys, if you falsified your business records, if you're a small business owner, you'd be in a world of hurt, right? And here now everybody's arguing, nope, former president shouldn't be held accountable. Absurd.
Right, I mean, it is absurd, and it's something we can't understand, right? Why do all these people still come to his defense when this happens? Why can't they see through this? Well, there's a hold that he has on a segment of people that is cult-like, and when you follow a leader in a cult-like way, you do not see the flaws of that person implicitly. I mean, that's why you're following that person, and their flaws are generally that they're leading a cult. So I think that that's why this happens. I think in Congress, and we'll probably talk about this later, I think, but there's this adherence to the fact that we have a gerrymandered Congress that has like 10 swing seats in it, and people are going to come to Donald Trump's defense because they know that it does nothing to them but help them, and it can only hurt them not to because their districts are so far in one direction or another. I think that this guy, Trump, is now thinking he's scared because it's real now. He's got this because it's real. I think that Fulton County is going to come, and I think it's going to come soon. I think January 6th is going to follow. I think there's going to be there may be a case in that rape case. So there is more to this, and I think that's why he might be beginning to be scared. And I don't know where the breaking point is. I don't know where people wander away from this guy. And I think that's the what.
Well, is it with the second set of charges, the third set of charges, or the third set of charges come out? He's now facing campaign finance, Fulton County, January 6th, possibly the rape as well. And they're still doing monologues about how this is just the deep state.
But there isn't a standard bearer in that party other than Donald Trump now that can come in and say, look, enough is enough, right? If Ted Cruz says that, what is that going to change? If Josh Hawley says it, what's that going to change? If Mitt Romney has been saying it. So there isn't this magic person, and it's not Kevin McCarthy because he is barely the speaker.
It doesn't appear to be Ron DeSantis.
And it's not Ron DeSantis. And I personally don't think Ron DeSantis is even going to run for president, but that's another question for another time. He could become that if this thing just starts to fall like a house of cards. But I honestly don't know who what can change this trajectory other than just people accepting the fact that he's got this 30% or whatever it is, and work against him from there? But there's not a voice that says, okay, that's enough, right?
There's only one way to beat Donald Trump, and that's on electability. Because the whole point of the Republican base is to own the libs. And they love Trump because he's really good at, in their mind, at owning the libs. But if you know he's going to lose and not be able to own the libs, well, that's the one reason you might vote against him.
But what's complicated is, you're right, electability, but his electability, someone's electability and his flawed electability, someone else's electability, hinges on the people that do support him coming out for someone else.
Yeah, well, so look, last thing here, I think in this regard. So number one, if it was just this case, he's gonna fight it tooth and nail with 1,000 lawyers, and his main thing is he wants to get off on a technicality on the statute of limitations and how the state and federal charges intermingle. No one thinks he didn't do it. Everybody knows he did it. Even if you're MAGA, you know he did it, right? You're just pissed that they didn't put Hillary Clinton in jail too, right? So, but could he get off on that technicality and survive this case? Absolutely, he could survive it, and even if he didn't get off on the technicality, he might be able to win from prison if it's just this case. But that Georgia case is coming, right? And in that case, he said, "Find me votes," to a guy who told him there are no votes for you. He said, "Find me more votes." Now you could say, "Hey, well, look, maybe that's vague enough that he skirts on that too." Then you got the Jack Smith, the special counsel at the federal level, who's investigating both the documents that he brought to Mar-a-Lago and January 6th. January 6th to me is the most important one. You've got emails saying, talking about fake electors, how they want to use fake electors. But again, it's a super hard thing to prove that he organized a coup. But now there's 3 cases. Then the document case.
I forgot about the documents.
The documents is crystal clear, all the way up to nuclear secrets, totally unguarded. Did not give them over, hid them over and over again. Again, any normal person, if you're a bureaucrat within the FBI, the CIA, NSA, etc., and you did 10% of what Trump did, you'd be facing a severe sentence, very severe.
The documents case was a little bit emasculated by the fact that everybody except the National Archives had classified documents. I mean,
but it's not though. That's just in the court of public opinion.
But no, it's not just in the court of public opinion, because you're right. That's my tendency to say that too. But the pursuit of it becomes more complicated by it, even though Trump's lawyers fought back at it. His case is so different from Mike Pence's and Joe Biden's and anyone else who had these documents. But the fighting back again, it's a more complicated thing.
So look, that all depends on only one person, Jack Smith, who's the special counsel, okay? Because if it was Merrick Garland, he wouldn't pursue it under penalty of law. Michael makes a great point. It's not kind of the point you're making, but I'll make this one. Merrick Garland, knowing that Biden did 5% of what Trump did, would never pursue Trump. Never on that charge, because he'd be so worried that they'd go after Biden afterwards, right? But Jack Smith, who knows, maybe he's a principled guy and goes, I don't care if you go after Biden and Pence and everybody else. Yeah. No, he definitely broke the law. But the overall point is there are at least 4 credible cases, and at least 2 of them will be brought forward, and 1 already has been, right? And so my guess is 3 or 4 of them are going to be brought forward.
And I think soon. I think Fulton County, this is a hunch, I think Fulton County is coming soon.
Yeah, so then all that someone has to do, but it's a very tall order for politicians. But you would need someone who is like Trump to come out there on the Republican Party, forget Democrats, because they're never going to do it and they're not relevant in this stage. Republican to come out and go, look guys, this guy lost to Biden. Biden could barely walk, he's barely awake. And he lost to Biden, right? And now he's like in prison or something in 3 or 4 different cases. What, are we gonna run this election from a prison cell in Georgia or Manhattan? No, let's win. Okay, we'll help Donald Trump. Let's all help him. Let's contribute to his legal defense. And this is outrageous. And they're coming after all of us. But guys, we got to win the goddamn election, okay? Otherwise, it's gonna be Sleepy Joe. But that'll work. That'll work.
Question,
but no one has that strength.
That's what I was saying. Who is the person? It's not even a question. Who that could have that strength would make it work? That's what I'm saying. I don't think the person exists. I think that it's not a question of strength. I don't think there's a voice, no matter how strong, that could move people yet.
I mean, Tucker Carlson is like the single watched cable news guy, and he is just desperate to get the Trump fans to love him once again after those texts came out. They're all just so scared. And I don't think it is one voice. I think it's they meet in a smoke-filled room and they all come out guns blazing. I think that if they all did it at the same time, backing each other up so that they know that they're not the one person that's gonna stick their head up and have it be blown off, then I think they could do something. If all of the politicians and all of the pundits and all of the hosts came out, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
All right, I lied. Super last thing, guys. Think about that, man. Isn't that so damning of our entire political system? We can't find one strong person in the whole country, in the whole goddamn country. On the Republican side, oh, DeSantis is supposed to be tough. Tough. He's like the Puxatawny Phil. Okay, he's like, am I gonna see my shadow? Am I gonna see my shadow? You coward, get out there and fight like a man. But he's not going to because he isn't. He's a coward. All Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, all these people, cowards. They're all cowards. So not one person can stand up to Donald Trump and bully him back. That's amazing. And on the Democratic side, even worse. So all of the country can be saved by just one strong person saying the truth, and I can't find him.
I think John's theory is better than your theory and probably mine, because we've seen what's happened to the lonely voice in the crowd against Donald Trump. I mean, why would anybody do it? It hasn't proven successful for anybody. 8 out of the 10 people.
You know why strong people do what they do? Because they're strong.
Right, but strong people have. I mean, there have been voices against this president within his own party, and they haven't been the kind of voices that you need, because that's what I was saying earlier. I don't know who that person is. I don't know who the person is that steps forward and does that and can have success with it. The people that have done it thus far haven't been successful. So
Chris Christie came out and said under no circumstances supporting, but he's not going to move millions.
No,
or anything
he's not.
like that.
I mean, that's that. And look what he was. Right?
Yeah, he can't mobilize people. He can stop them from crossing a bridge, but he can't get them across the bridge.
Somebody like, and I'm not saying that but somebody like Mike Pompeo, somebody who worked with and for him, somebody who is smart, and so I'm not saying Mike Pompeo, somebody who came from his side and has a lot of people that respect him.
Yeah.
I'm not. Mike Pompeo is not that person, by the way, because I don't think that would A, ever happen, and B, that he would be able to move mountains.
You have to find someone who can mock him, who's strong enough to mock him. And Chris Christie and all the others have to pick themselves off the ground before they can go and fight him. They're so scared. Like Christie thinks like, oh, I'm getting him. Are you? No, the way you get him is mock him.
Yeah.
And say, God damn it, man, when are you gonna stop costing us elections? All right, step aside already and let a man handle this. You see what I just did there? That would piss off liberals, right? That's how a Republican should talk if they want to fight against Donald Trump. But they're like,
Republicans can't even oust George Santos. I mean,
I know, right?
So like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, they're all cowards. Okay.
Yeah. It turns out that being a strong man is the only character that George Santos isn't willing to play. Unfortunately, he can save us all a lot of trouble. Okay, we have more to get to on the other side of this break, but stick around. We're going to respond to some of your comments after this.
Let's go to member section right away. Dragonfire Mathematician X says, Power Panel Friday with Cenk on the day after all the rich libs got to celebrate the arrest of their Dark Lord they secretly love for all the money he made them while they pretended to indict him. They'll pretend to hate him even more when he gets reelected, so he makes them even more while they get dragged to bad places. I'll summarize that way. I hear you, brother. But look, we were saying Alvin Bragg and all these guys were never gonna indict. They were just wanted headline after headline after headline. We got exhausted from him, but there, he indicted him. So we now move forward, okay? You could say we pressured him. You could say he did it on his own. I have no idea. But he did the right thing now, very belatedly, and it might cost the case. But at least he did it. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Cenk's left tricep of fury says, drop it like Lindsey Graham's respect. Shy Coltrane 42, we're gonna get to that later. Shy Coltrane 42 said, wait, Trump's been indicated and now Michael Schur's in the house? Things are looking up, okay. Squirrely Siege says, Trump has 2 brain cells and the synapses fire slowly between them like the old school Pong game. Okay, I added the sound effects. Gabby Marita says, oh no, what would Johnny Twice's law firm be called? Sprinkles, Pie, and Dragons? Okay, could be, could be.
I'd eat there.
That does sound, it sounds interesting. Sunglasses Tony writes, the Republican labeling always leads to some sort of victimization angle. The government is weaponized, so we must defend ourselves by committing acts of violence. Always the same way. The right wing has toxic entitlement and victimhood. We are the only ones who are being persecuted, they say to black people in this country. And Muslims and transgender people, you know how badly we're persecuted. Well, no, man, that's a news to us. Never heard it. Really, in America, persecution. Okay, anyway, but they feel entitled to be above the law. That's why they're particularly upset now. Catherine says, to libs, draining the swamp is getting money out of politics. To Trump, it means getting politics out of the way of making infinite money. Certainly it does to him, but to be fair to the right-wing voters, it doesn't to them. They don't actually want the corruption. They just picked the wrong guy. Like they don't like the Republican establishment corruption. They certainly didn't mind it less than the Democratic establishment corruption, that's for sure. Huang Jun says, law and orderola.
Oh, I like that.
And now this, I like it. No, I'm out of time, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Michael, and John with you guys. Also, Amanda Renzi, Zeynep Bulguç, and they just became members. Zeynep and Amanda, thank you so much. You're awesome. They hit the join button below the video on YouTube, but you can also be part of us and help us do this show and get the truth out there. If you do that, you could also do it through tyt.com/join. And finally, Swedane Dragon gifted 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube, and that's awesome. And Michael, real quick, where are you going to be this weekend?
I'm doing Ali Velshi show tomorrow morning on MSNBC, Michael Schur NBC, and I'll be talking about all this Trump stuff tomorrow morning. So watch tomorrow, 9 Eastern.
All right, check that out.
Tomorrow I will be at WrestleMania, viewing, not performing so far. I don't rule anything out.
Where is that? Where's WrestleMania?
SoFi Stadium.
But you look like you could, like that's the exact outfit.
That's why I'm growing my hair.
And then you rip it off, and there'd be a dragon shirt underneath.
I thought he was a lawyer.
And then when you beat your opponent, you throw a dragon on top of them.
It'll work.
Let's get one.
You have to read that. Are there names of the people that just joined? Read the second name. The second name deserves another reading than the one you gave the first time.
Zeynep Bulguç.
Okay, that was good.
Jeez, I would have mangled that.
It's a Turkish name.
It's a Turkish name, that's why, okay.
Okay, with that, let's have a little bit of fun talking about some people who are having anything but.
Democrats are branding Trump as a criminal.
It's legally pathetic.
It's clickbait. It is an unbelievable abuse of justice.
Pure balderdash.
My heart is broken. I had some tears in my eyes.
Looking a little emotional. I feel the same way.
Okay, so you see some people there who are actually aggrieved. They're feeling rage, they're feeling sadness. Some of them have been outed already as deeply despising Donald Trump, but they know that they need to pretend to care about the charges that he's facing, so they're doing their best And at the same time, they're attempting to convince their audience that the charges that Trump are facing is not just about him and the things that he's done. This is something much bigger and much more dangerous. Watch.
If there's a mugshot of Donald Trump, it'll be in dorm rooms and on t-shirts. He is an OG.
Even if convicted, that's not going to stop him.
Donald Trump could run in part on saying, I'm going to pardon myself and go after the deep state.
It's not open for debate that we live in a police state.
It's like Stalin's purges.
We're crossing the Rubicon here.
This is a political Rubicon that has been crossed.
They have crossed the Rubicon.
Basically, it's one party hunting another. It almost feels like they're pushing the population to react.
It is a war on conservatism and MAGA.
They want you to strike out.
People better be careful, and that's all I'll say about that.
Yes, so many of them saying they want war. We're going to give you a couple of examples of that. In some cases, you have them pushing back saying, don't do that. Don't give them what they want. But all too often, these pundits are just saying, it's almost like they want you to strike back. Back to you. I feel like you have a responsibility maybe following the coup to say that violence is a bad thing and we shouldn't pursue it. But anyway, they're going through a lot, clearly.
Yeah, so look guys, there's two different kinds of political prosecutions, not persecutions, okay? So one is politically motivated, and that's the Banana Republic thing that everybody talks about. I think the best example of that is what they did to Lula in Brazil. So the right wing saw someone who was incredibly popular, progressive. He was in office, and he was, among other things, wanted the natural resources of Brazil to be for the people of Brazil. I think his popularity was like 78%, etc. They literally invented corruption charges against him. And of all people, Glenn Greenwald, back when he was sane, had done brilliant reporting on that and exposed it 100%. So that's where you make up evidence and you go and unjustly imprison a political opponent. Then there's the other kind where you say, okay, somebody in power did something wrong, we should hold them accountable. That is not a banana republic. That's actually the opposite of a banana republic. So for example, in France, Sarkozy has been up on several charges. He used to be the leader of the country. Well, yes, but one of them, by the way, I believe is on campaign finance violations. Well, if you break the law and there's fraud and corruption charges, Netanyahu was under corruption charges. So there's tons of places where there's someone who's in charge that breaks the law, and in a developed country, you hold them accountable because there is such a thing as rule of law. So the question isn't, is the person a politician? Because they should never get a pass for being a politician, and they should not be persecuted for being a politician. The question is, did they break the law or didn't they? Now, if you notice, none of those guys, they just keep saying like, it's just ridiculous that they charged him on this. They don't say that he didn't do it, because everyone knows he definitely did it. They're just saying, well, it had something to do with sex, and that seems silly. And technical violations, bookkeeping. Now you're supposed to keep your books right? Yeah, you're supposed to keep your books right.
Something to do with sex didn't matter when Bill Clinton was in office to any of these people.
Yeah, when it was about Bill Clinton, on something far, far, far less. They're like, put him away, right? When it's Trump and he's broken like half a dozen laws in this one case, they're like, whatever, man. Okay, no, whatever, man is not a legal defense. So, and all these guys, none of them even mean it, to do what John said earlier. These guys, half of them, no, what am I talking about? 98% of them hate Trump, right? So they go out there and they do this performative theatrics where they're like, I almost cried, I had tears in my eyes, right? And then they encourage the violence and they're like, I'm not saying people should do something, but they did everything but wink. You saw the video. They're like, they're crossing the Rubicon. And there's one last thing about crossing the Rubicon. It's not just threats of potential street violence and stochastic terrorism. It is a warning. If you come for our lawbreakers, we're gonna come for your politicians. Whether they broke the law or didn't break the law, we don't care. We're gonna pretend this isn't about the law. We're gonna pretend that we're just randomly prosecuting politicians on both sides, so that when I come to arrest your political leaders randomly, my followers will say, yeah, we're just striking back. So what that they didn't break the law? So what, okay? They did it to us. Guaranteed. That is what they will say word for word.
Yeah.
And there's, the other part of it is that they're saying things just to create this echo chamber. And that happens by accident too, is that they do create this. I mean, say you looked at the bridge that they showed those people out on. There aren't a lot of people in the streets upset about this. They're making this happen because the people that watch their shows are pretty excited about it, and they're wrong about it. As Johnny pointed out early in the show, New York doesn't release mug shots, and I don't disagree. That's the only person I don't disagree with. That mug shot, it'll be Donald Trump with his $1 million smile. It's not going to be some somber guy in a jumpsuit. It's going to, I would say, become very popular once it's leaked by TMZ or whoever would let it out. But they don't release those things. You cannot also pardon someone federally. Only Governor Hochul, I think, can pardon Donald Trump, and I don't see that happening. You can't pardon someone from, if Trump were to become president again, he could not pardon himself in a state crime. That will play later in the federal crimes that he will likely be indicted for. So this is, they're just grasping at straws. I'm sure none of them know who crossed the Rubicon in the first place. They're saying it because they're saying it. It was Julius Caesar, by the way, but I
think it was Washington.
But yeah, it was Washington, and then it was, well, he crossed it later. It's first American to cross, I think. And so this is the theater of what we knew would happen. These are scripts that were written weeks ago for when these would come down. Yeah. These guests were probably booked weeks ago for when it came down, and here's the fruits of all that.
We've touched on this topic, but I want to set us up for a conversation, though. There have previously been calls by Donald Trump and many of his supporters to protest. When he had announced that he was going to be arrested a week and a half ago and it didn't happen, there were calls for it, and there were many little protests. There are dozens of them. But anyway, not many people actually came together. And so far, after the indictments have been announced, again, there have not been a lot of people. I think 20 people were outside of Mar-a-Lago in a show of support, if that can be said to be a show of support. But today, that wasn't the big day, obviously. The big day, potentially, is Tuesday. And some people will be there. We're gonna get to that in one sec. But first, I just wanna remind you that Marjorie Greene is saying that Democrats want civil war. I've asked many of the Democrats I know, and none of them seem to want civil war, but she's sure of it. And then goes on to, again, everybody is convinced that George Soros is behind this guy that Soros has not donated to, and Soros wants full control. So a little bit of anti-Semitism. Marjorie Greene will never learn her lessons, and she doesn't have to because there's no accountability. More importantly, though, she says that she's going to New York on Tuesday. We must protest the unconstitutional witch hunt, she says, which marks a pretty big change of heart from 13 days ago when she tweeted, "We don't need to protest about the communists, Democrats planning to arrest President Trump." She at that point was saying, no, like when they say that we're gonna protest and hurt people, that's a false flag, they're gonna do it. So don't protest because that'll set them up to do it. Less than 2 weeks later, she is now apparently going to be headed to New York. And so the protests thus far haven't really materialized, but I am curious what both of you think. This is the day he'll actually be arrested. I don't know if between now and then he'll call for them to protest. He seems to have backed off a little bit on the violent, like calls for violence. Do you think, is she gonna be there? Is she gonna be leading the next January 6th? What's gonna happen come Tuesday?
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, under her own logic, she is the false flag operation. Like, I don't think there's a false flag operation. But she said, man, if anybody goes to protest, that's the FBI doing a false flag operation. She said right afterwards, I'm going to protest. Okay, I mean, should I take you at your word? Okay.
Green is Antifa.
Apparently, and deep state, okay? I thought she was mainly deep margarine, but okay. So in her tweet about Soros, this is important. Look, important distinction. Soros didn't give to Alvin Bragg directly, and he says he's never met him. But his political organizations did give to Color of Change, which I think is a wonderful organization overall. But Color of Change did give a lot of money to Alvin Bragg. So it's not to say that Soros's money never got to Alvin Bragg. It did. Jonathan Soros, his son, also donated, but in his case directly to Alvin Bragg. A lot less, but donated to him directly. So now, so I'm not in the camp of there are no donors and the donors don't matter and nobody cares about the donors. I'm in the exact opposite camp. And if I could, I take all the money out of politics, including every dime of George Soros's and Jonathan Soros and every other Soros and Koch brothers and Mercers and people on both sides, okay? But she said at the end of her tweet, And Soros wants war to destabilize America and gain full control. That's deeply anti-Semitic, okay? And deranged. So let me explain for those of you who might not know. Really, there's a history behind it. So in the lead up to World War II, the fascists said the Jews were responsible for World War I. They started the war, they start the wars. They're responsible. Why do they do it? Because they want to control everything. I mean, this is as close to word for word of that kind of fascist propaganda as you will see anywhere. And there's tons of non-Jewish donors that they could pick from, including corporations. ExxonMobil, Big Pharma. I mean, my God, the right wing hates Big Pharma. You could easily say, look at Big Pharma donating to X, Y, or Z, right? Or to other prosecutors, etc. Right? No, they always pick the Jewish donor. And okay, look, they're among the donors. I want to get their money out too. But then to say that he's going to start a war within the country because Soros alone wants full control, that's not just, guys, first of all, just now you know the history, so it's definitely anti-Semitic and it's meant to be anti-Semitic. But on top of that, don't, like, people in her district, you don't get that that's deranged? Like, here's what the donors want: money. 9 out of 10 times they want money. So ExxonMobil, Pfizer, Sheldon Adelson, Charles Koch, they all donate so they can get more money, okay? Having nothing to do with their religion or background or whether they're even a human being. So now Soros would say no, he does it out of the goodness of his heart, he's trying to help different causes, etc. Maybe you take him at his word, maybe you don't. I don't care. Don't take him at his word. Say he's a liar, say he just wants the money. But to say that he wants to start a war so that Americans will murder each other and then he could have full control, that's deranged. None of them, ExxonMobil doesn't want that. I hate Charles Koch and he doesn't want that. Soros doesn't want it. You'd have to be a lunatic to believe that.
Disney maybe.
Right. They can make a good movie out of it.
Yeah, you're on point. I mean, there's nothing to challenge there. One thing I will say is that in these calls to arms that are happening, and that I think that the relentless prosecution of the January 6th offenders is informing the fact that there isn't, and there's nothing predicted of any kind of in the street violence uprising. I really think that you have to give credit to the Justice Department for what they've been doing with the January 6th defendants, because this is not just a party anymore. People are going to jail for a long period of time, and hopefully these calls to arms that have been going out and calls to take back our streets or whatever the hell they want to call it won't materialize around the legitimate indictment, it would seem, of Donald Trump.
Last thing on this. If you're a MAGA guy and you don't believe any of us and you love Trump and you want to go protest, okay, no problem. Keep it peaceful if you can. If you're peaceful, I don't mind you. Of course. I don't know about anybody else. None of us mind you protesting. God bless. Have at it, Oz. Okay. And by the way, a lot of the people that went on January 6th did not go into the building. They just came to watch the speech and went home. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. The people that went into the building and did the violence and threatened the violence is the problem, right? So, but if you're going to do that and you might get arrested, why don't you ask Donald Trump, demand of Donald Trump that he pays the legal fees? He raised hundreds of millions of dollars for legal defense. He didn't spend one dime of it on any of you guys, not us. Who cares about us? The MAGA guys, the most hardcore MAGA guys who said, I'll go into the building for you. I'll be your private militia for you. I'll execute your vice president for you. I'll do anything for you. He hasn't given them a dime. When are you gonna realize the guy's a con man? At least ask for, if he's gonna call them martyrs and political prisoners, ask that he pay for their legal defense, which he can afford so easily with the money you gave him. It's not even his money. Yep. It's the money you gave him.
Yep. Probably not gonna happen. Okay, we're gonna take one last break. Lots more to get to though. Don't go anywhere.
back on TYT. All right, a bunch of things are interesting that are happening. Number one, we restocked my book at shoptyt.com. Gone. Extra 100 copies are already sold out. So sometimes when I tell you to panic, they're gone in one day. Okay, so we'll see if we're gonna restock it. But you can buy pre-order the book in other places. You just go to tyt.com/justice. If you buy it on Amazon or other places, it moves us up the rankings too. So I appreciate it, guys. You guys are the best. Number two, apparently our podcast right now, or yesterday's Trump indictment episode was #1 in for government, including beating BBC, Daily Beast, CBS, and more.
Not bad.
So that's kind of awesome. So check out our podcasting network. You'll see Damage Report there. You'll see Young Turks and so many others. Love it. Now go to the members. Ian says, imagine Jon Stewart versus Tucker Carlson in 2024. I kind of can't imagine it, and that would be an amazing race. The only person I would trust against Tucker Carlson is Jon Stewart, if I'm being honest. So far out of the, we'll see. Anyway, David Brown, the Double Dose Dragon, says, if there's a Ruby Khan, Trump is interested. That's really good. Brett Campbell, AKA Dragon My Ass, writes in, they've crossed the Rubik's Cube. Okay, you know what? Both David and Brett, $100 Blue Apron gift cards.
Damn.
Okay,
wow.
Rewards at tyt.com. We love the good jokes and the good contributions to the show. Okay, Mr. Unknown on Twitch says, John and Michael look like the same person, but at different stages of life.
That's, we're different
I'm
people.
at death and great.
Great,
Okay.
Great.
Major Matt Mason writes it on Twitch. Mind if I use your scream as my ringtone, Jank? No, I don't mind. Go for it. Okay.
Why would anybody want to do that?
A scream?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I agree. I think you should. I think, no. Okay, there you go. There's another ringtone. I can keep doing this all day long. Okay.
Probably will.
Yeah, that's true. New YouTube members. Aaron Parker says, I demand the mugshot. We all deserve it after the hell he's put us all through. You're right. Like, it would be popular for both right wingers and left wingers. It's sell out like crazy. I'll put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
You crazy? Yeah. I'll put it on the first second that it comes out, but it probably won't. Michael Gonzalez says, Trump's wall is so full of ketchup right now. That's also really fun.
Really good. Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, Michael, you get a $100 Blue Apron gift card. Okay, rewards at tyt.com. They verify that you're a member, and then you get it. Brimstone Pizza. At best, Trump will get house arrest on a championship golf course. I thought the same exact thing. I mean, that's what we're all rooting for: is house arrest at a gorgeous place. All right, back in I just said back in America. That's what I was about to say. Anyway, we are back in America. Anyway, TYT, Cenk, John, and Michael with you guys. Also, Teresa Arney just became a member, and so does Stan Moulton. Stan, tell your brother to be more progressive in Congress. Okay, people gifting memberships are Peter Hamby, Chris Birch, Miss Anonymous, and Progressive Canuck did 5 more memberships. You guys are amazing. That's all on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, easiest thing in the world, hit the join button below the video. If you're on a phone, you just scroll down a little further. Everybody else, tyt.com/join. We love you and appreciate you. John.
Yes. Back in America. No, here, this Trump indictment news, I think it's got a lot of us feeling emotions, not all of them positive. Here's an example.
Joining us now, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is with us. Senator, welcome to the program. Thank you for being here. Let's get your reaction.
Okay. If you got a pile of crap and you chop it up 34 times, it's still a pile of crap. It's duplicitous charging. They're trying to smear the guy. They're trying to take cases that nobody else would take and resurrect them. This is literally legal voodoo. This is political persecution.
I don't think it's literally legal voodoo. That seems exciting. I'd read that screenplay, but I don't think that's what it is. But Lindsey Graham is obviously going through a lot. You can hear it in his voice. You can see it in his glistening eyes. He's very much affected by the legal troubles that his great longtime friend Donald Trump is experiencing. And he's worried about Trump. He's specifically worried about Trump's financial state, but he's got a solution for that.
To the conservatives out there, make sure you vote. If you got friends, make sure they vote. If you don't have any friends, go make some friends. But you need to help this man, Donald J. Trump. They're trying to drain him dry. He spent more money on lawyers than most people spend on campaigns. They're trying to bleed him dry. DonaldJTrump.com. Go tonight, give the president some money to fight this bull. This is going to destroy America. We're going to fight back at the ballot box. We're not going to give in. How does this end, Sean? Trump wins in court and he wins the election. That's how this ends. DonaldJTrump.com. Give the man some money so he can fight.
I feel bad sometimes for conservatives. They're being told to spend their last dollar to give it to a literal billionaire so that he can defend himself for the crimes that he committed. And they're also insulted along the way as being friendless. Man, these right-wingers really don't respect the audience.
Now we're gonna get to an awesome and hilarious piece of hypocrisy from Lindsey Graham in a second. But drain him dry? Ugh. Don't do that. Ugh. Okay.
Wasn't that the problem in the first place?
Yeah, and I mean, so that's how we got here. Anyway,
I don't support what I just said.
But look, guys, I've said this now many times, including earlier in the show. He never gave any of the money that he raised for legal defense, hundreds of millions of dollars, to any of the January 6th guys, didn't help them one dime. All he cares about is himself. He already has a couple $100 million for legal defense. That'll do it. That's plenty of money. Legal defense costs a lot of money. It doesn't cost that much. And then second of all, is he or isn't he a billionaire? Why are you guys, I mean, look, if you're making $15 an hour, like a lot of Republican politicians say that's too much, right? But if you are, congrats, you're making about $31,000 a year. You're gonna give money to Donald Trump, who says he has $10 billion? Why? Look, man, it's your money, and if you're a right winger, I kind of like you wasting it on politically. I don't like you wasting it in real life, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that could be going to other Republican politicians, etc. Yeah. But weirdly, I'm looking out for you. Why the hell would you give it to that guy? Because this weirdo who doesn't believe a word he's saying, Lindsey, you all know how fake Lindsey Graham is. If you're MAGA, you know how pathetic he is, right? And they're pretending to cry out, destroy my beloved Donald J. Trump. God, I've never seen a worse snivel in my weasel in my life than Lindsey Graham.
Can I make that my ringtone?
It could be.
These are like mega churches, right? I mean, these are like the pastors who go on TV and ask for your money, It's for the church, it's for the people, it's for what we're doing. And then they go back and they raise their salaries and they raise the salaries of everyone who works at the church, and everybody's getting the money and they're keeping the money. And they're raising it on the backs of people who don't have it. I've been to so many, I've probably been to 100, and that's not exaggerating, probably close to 100 anyway, Trump rallies and Trump things. And at these places, you meet people who look like they need every dollar they have. And I don't mean that. You see the kind of cars they drive up in, you see, and not all of them, but these are people that are giving money that are being taken advantage of. I actually feel, I feel badly for these people. I think others feel badly for them too, because they're being taken advantage of. And then you have Lindsey Graham go on TV and say that somehow by sending a check to Donald Trump, you are gonna save America because this case, in his eyes, is unjust. And this pleading, the almost tears that you saw from Lindsey Graham, those are the kind of things that are the saddest part of this whole MAGA era, is the people that he's taken advantage of all the way through. It's like the Trump University. It's like the veteran scam that he had. All of that. It's taking advantage of people for the bottom line being dollars.
Yeah. I remember, you said you feel bad for them. I remember covering back around the 2020 election, they had that scam. It wasn't just Trump, but Trump was by far the worst, where they would have people sign up and then they would effectively trick them with check boxes into signing up for automatic recurring donations of the same size. And there were elderly conservatives whose entire bank account was just drained from these automatic things. And they had to fight like hell to get their money back. And Trump didn't care. They just kept doing it over and over again. So that's pathetic, and I feel bad for them. I don't feel too bad for Lindsey Graham, though, despite the fact that, man, that guy has fallen far over the years. If you're new to American politics, you might see those videos we showed you and think, oh, that's who Lindsey Graham is. But remember, he used to be kind of different, especially in how he spoke about Donald Trump.
Here's what I think. I think Donald Trump is a political car wreck, and he shouldn't be commander-in-chief. He's becoming a jackass at a time when we need to have a serious debate about the future of the party and the country.
What is your reaction to hearing what Donald Trump says?
I'm disgusted. He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party. He doesn't represent the values that the men and women who wear the uniform are fighting for. And you know how you make America great again? Tell Donald Trump to go to hell.
They're harsh words, maybe not as harsh as the things Tucker Carlson has said about Trump, but they're still pretty rough.
Yeah, no, Lindsey Graham does not have a body double. That was not a doppelganger.
Incredible. And we just learned about him too. He's, like he said, he's been looking for a friend for a long time. And he finally found one. And that friend is Donald Trump. It's his friend. Lindsey got a friend. So
yeah. So I watched a lot of those clips, and we covered a lot of those clips at the time. He went on to say in that a conversation on CNN that Donald Trump emboldens our enemies, and that he's such a national security threat that we should go to DEFCON 4. Now, to be fair to Lindsey Graham, there is one thing he's always been consistent on, which is starting wars. So he probably wanted to do that for a number of reasons. But guys, this is not some sort of change of heart. He didn't go to church, although Michael's analogy is a great one. So great that I used it earlier. No. I'm so amused by myself. Anyway, so when no, but seriously, the idea that these are preachers in a sense, the new preachers, I think is exactly right. And so I think the Tucker Carlsons, et cetera, are like at setting up the mega churches, right? And they're the top preachers. And these are like junior preachers, like visiting preachers that come on, these politicians. And so they gotta do the act. They gotta speak in gibberish and play with snakes and stuff and do the carnival and then do some juggling, right? And be like, right? But it's all like bread and circus, and it's always been entertainment, whether it was religion or it was the gladiators back in Rome or it's Fox News today. It's always a way to entertain you, but as a way of tricking you and mollifying you and making sure you don't see the real problems. That's literally why the Roman emperors did those things where they, not only the gladiators, but feeding the Christians to the lions, et cetera, was like, hey, fight the others, blame the others. Don't look at me, I'm the real problem, I'm the goddamn emperor, right? It was all a distraction, and that's what's happening. And Lindsey Graham has never believed a word he's saying in all of politics. I mean, he's like, you see a character in a movie, and I mean the most B-rate movie you've ever seen, and it undersells what kind of a greaseball Lindsey Graham is as a politician.
100%. Okay, I think we have a few brief moments for an important piece of still semi-breaking news. Let's jump into that. We've got some bad news for the Murdochs and for Fox News. A judge has intervened and stopped Fox's attempts to prematurely end the Dominion lawsuit, the $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit that they're currently facing. Now, bear in mind, a judge can, if they choose to, in some cases, throw out a case entirely or grant a win to the plaintiff, and Fox was very much hoping that that's what the outcome would be, but it wasn't. Delaware Superior Court Judge Eric Davis issued his ruling rejecting Fox's attempts to end the case and granted a partial win to Dominion, which means right now that unless some sort of settlement is reached or somebody intervenes, this case will be going to court apparently sometime later this year. And the very future of Fox could potentially ride on what happens there. So understand what Fox was trying to accomplish in the early parts of this legal case. They argued that the statements that had been made on air by their hosts and by guests were protected under the First Amendment. Dominion had failed to show that the statements were made with actual malice, and that Dominion had failed to prove damages, and apparently the judge didn't buy any of those. Dominion said that Fox, quote, gave life to a manufactured storyline about Dominion rigging the election for Joe Biden when they, quote, endorsed, repeated, and broadcast a series of verifiably false yet devastating lies about Dominion. And they specifically provided evidence about 20 statements made by Fox that they argued constituted Dominion. For each of these 20, the judge found that Fox asserted their statements as facts and not opinion, which is protected speech. They were not presented as a speculation, a thought. They were articulated as facts being given by hosts, which are supposed to be able to be trusted. The judge said specifically, when viewed in the full context of the overall communication expressed during the segment, a reasonable viewer would understand that the Fox News on-air personalities are asserting facts regarding Dominion, not an opinion. As such, the court finds that the statement asserts facts and therefore not protected under the opinion privilege. Also specifically said that they were found to be lies as well. The evidence developed in the civil proceeding demonstrates that is crystal clear that none of the statements relating to Dominion about the 2020 election are true. Therefore, the court will grant summary judgment in favor of Dominion on the element of falsity. And so Fox was hoping that First Amendment, that would just be their blanket protection here. That was not the case. And look, we've seen a lot of texts and we've seen a lot of emails. We understand, as Fox understood, from the producers to the hosts to the execs, they knew they needed to tell these lies. They knew they needed to bring on people to tell these lies, specifically to not lose their audience. They reference losing subscribers on Fox Nation. They reference viewers sending social media messages of anger, going to watch Newsmax instead. The entire motivation behind what happened in the wake of the 2020 election could not be any clearer.
Okay, so by the way, I'll take a little bit of pride in, apparently we're stronger than Murdoch over here, because sometimes when people go, oh yeah, you're gonna lose subscribers, and sometimes we'll have a controversial opinion that doesn't match orthodoxy and we'll lose some subscribers. And I go like this, because our job is to bring you the truth and not to just make you happy no matter where the facts are, right? But Murdoch and the Fox News family apparently looked over and said, well, we know what's true, but we don't really give a damn because our audience doesn't want the truth, so just give them lies, right? And that's cowardly on top of greedy. Okay, so now as to the legal judgment here, look, normally surviving a motion to dismiss is not that big a deal because it's just the first part of the trial where you go, do they have a case or is this no case at all, right? So it shouldn't be that big a news story. But in this case, surviving that motion to dismiss is kind of a big deal. It's a little bit of an exception for two reasons. One is it is very easy to dismiss defamation cases. First of all, truth is a defense. So if Fox went in there and said, well, Donald Trump did win the election and Dominion did rig it, well, then that's true and then the case is dismissed, right? But what the judge is saying is, no, that is not true. Fox has shown, as is the case for Donald Trump when he went to court 60 different times and his allies after the 2020 election, they presented zero evidence that the election was stolen and that Dominion did it. So that's pretty relevant. Now they'll have to prove it again in the actual trial, and that's a huge part of it, right? And by the way, if you're a MAGA guy, you'd love that this trial is happening. You guys finally get to prove that the election was stolen. It's a golden opportunity. National case, everybody's paying attention. Everybody bring their evidence. Dinesh, make sure you talk to to Murdoch and stuff. Get him all the 2,000 mules, 4,000 mules. Bring all the mules you got,
and all the my pillows you have.
Yeah, bring the mules and the pillows.
Get Sidney Powell in there.
Okay, yeah, and the Kraken. I didn't know that was released at some point.
Do it at Four Seasons Landscaping.
And the massive dumps. That's what Trump was talking about. Oh, got massive dumps of evidence. Perfect. You're gonna save Fox News $1.6 billion. Okay, but the second reason why it's relevant is the opinion privilege. So in this rare instance, you could, in a motion to dismiss, say, look, there shouldn't even be a trial because I said I don't like her dress. That's my opinion. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the dress. In which case, you could get a summary judgment. You could get a motion to dismiss because that's not defamation if it's just your opinion. And here the judge is making a definitive ruling. No, it was not your opinion. You stated it as fact. So now, look, normally, a lot of this stuff is about how much you're gonna pay in a settlement. That's what nobody tells you, okay? You think it's gonna go all the way to trial and it's Fox, and sometimes they do fight it all the way through and it can happen, especially in a case that's this public and has already gone this far. But 9 out of 10 times things settle, but the price fluctuates depending on how the trial is going and how the process is going. So when you get past a motion to dismiss, the amount that Fox News has to pay is more. It'd normally be a little bit more, but given that already Dominion has proven to the court several critical factors in this case, now it's gonna be a lot more.
It's like a huge episode of Deal or No Deal. It's exciting.
No, but it is though, that's a great analogy, it is. And so right now Murdoch's going, God damn it, because this decision cost them several $100 million today.
Yeah, no question it did. And whether it goes to trial or not, we don't know. But I could see Fox saying, because of what you just said, we'll pay it and be done with it.
Yeah. So and the price they're going to pay went up by, I don't know what the number is, 100 million, 400 million, right? But it went up a lot today.
And they said the jury could find for as much as $1 billion in this case, which is a lot of money, even for murder.
Can't wait.
Yeah. So if it gets settled out of court and you never find out the number, which is normal, trust me that after this decision, it's going to be high. Okay. So if you wanted Fox News hurt, they were hurt today.
Yeah.
All right, we got to go. We're crazy out of time. Everybody check out Damage Report. Michael's staying for a little bit longer. And we've got the crazy diaper story and the new conspiracy theory. And Lauren Boebert's kid had sex with an underage girl. Of course, he's also underage. Pregnancy, what did they decide to do? It's a wonderful mess.
And I said I'm staying?
Yeah.
Don't feel obligated.
We'll be right back.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
Been honest with him, like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it, but instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction.
So what if I have 35? Don't hit me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy.
Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you.
They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either. Drop it. All right, another power panel. Cenk Uygur, Michael Schur. Ray Vanna joins us, star of Rebel Headquarters. Make sure you're checking her out there. Ray, great to see you. I know you got news for us.
I do. So let's just jump right into this first story. Everybody, I need you to watch this. Hundreds of school children, teens, and parents gathered at the Tennessee Capitol on Thursday to protest for tighter gun control laws, just 3 days after a shooter opened fire at a private Christian school in the city, murdering 6, including 3 9-year-old children. Now, this rally was organized by 34-year-old mother Jen, who asked that only her first name be used. Now, she's been a victim of gun violence herself. Her high school principal in Florida was shot and killed by a disgruntled former teacher. Her cousin murdered his ex-fiance with a gun before taking his own life. So gun violence is something that she's experienced personally. And that's why she's protesting the lax gun laws in the state where she lives and where she's raising her family. Now, she spoke to the Independent and said, honestly, this is my first rally. I've never done this stuff before, she said, holding a poster that featured a family Christmas photo from Republican Representative Andy Ogles that shows his family holding weapons. Our society does have a moral issue, she wrote alongside the photo of the politician who represents the district where former student Audrey Hale killed 6 at the Covenant School on Monday. I felt compelled because I'm a mom and I've dealt with gun violence directly, she said, adding that the rash of school shootings is a disgrace. Jen said that she is not against people having guns. Do what you want with your hunting rifle or whatever. There's no reason why we should have ARs. Absolutely zero reason, referring to the AR-15 assault rifles. Now, to most people, that seems perfectly reasonable. To the lawmakers in Tennessee, however, they remained unmoved and stuck to their agenda. The New Republic reported that when Democratic Representative Justin Pearson tried to bring up gun reform while discussing an unrelated bill, Republican Speaker Cameron Sexton told him to keep to the measure at hand. Now, Republicans hold a supermajority in the Tennessee legislature as well as holding the governor's office. But all of this is coming as firearms overtook motor vehicle deaths as the #1 cause of death for children and teens in the United States. So these parents, these children, these teenagers, they're protesting for such a worthy cause just to be ignored by these legislators. And Cenk, this just seems like a story that we've seen over and over and over again.
Yeah, so #1, I love the protest. And so God bless, do it again and again, make it larger and larger and larger. Okay, now, but also #2, this is very important. You have to have a specific goal that you're trying to accomplish. So in the case of gun control, look, I don't say it to discourage you. I'm just trying to say there's a better way of doing it, okay? It's not as a criticism of this particular protest or anyone involved in it. It's just to say that if you do general protests, even if there's 200,000 people there, it is not going to move a single vote because our politicians are now completely disconnected from their voters. They're in little gerrymandered pockets and they get so much money from outside forces that when elections happen, they just lie to you. They just do ad after ad telling you how great they are and how they're on your side and they care about your kids, etc. And people mistakenly think, oh, I guess that's the person on my side and vote for them. So it's not gonna move any politicians. But what if you had a specific goal and you said, okay, for example, the Sandy Ogles guy, this is the district where the shooting just happened at the Christian school, right? 3 little kids dead, those poor administrators are dead, one's a janitor, one's a substitute teacher, the other one's the head of the school. Okay, so look at these kids, look at these grown-ups, they're dead, they're in his district, and then shows Christmas card where he's holding up the automatic weapons and honestly, let's be honest, put automatic weapons, assault weapons, I should say, in the hands of his little children, right? So here, take this as a political prop. I'm gonna endanger your lives by giving you all assault weapons so I can get elected and get a couple more votes. You defeat Andy Ogles in that race. He won by 14, I checked. He won by 14, it's not gonna be easy.
It was a gerrymandered district because that used to be Jim Cooper's district and we just gerrymandered out of it. So that's what did it.
So it won't be easy, but my guess is whichever Democrat ran against him was not useful, right? Like, I'm sure she barely fought. She was told by her consultants, be meek and don't actually run against them, right? And she lost by 14. But that's a good thing in a sense because if you defeat someone in Tennessee who won by 14 earlier because he's too extreme on guns, and you win it on the Protect Our Kids campaign, well, that's gonna send a message. Then all of a sudden, the Lauren Boeberts and everybody else who's got the same Christmas picture is gonna be a little nervous. And that's exactly what you want in politics. That's how you play hardball and get them to change their positions, because remember, they're not actual normal human beings. There's only one thing they care about, power. If you challenge their power, you can get results. If you don't, you're not gonna get results, and that's where we've been the last 40 years.
The problem is these gerrymandered districts. I mean, you have like somebody like Andrew Clyde, who was the one that was passing out all the lapel pins in the shape of AR-15s. He had the same type of literature. He associates himself obviously with the guns. And these people can do whatever they want in these districts because they are gerrymandered to a point where there are about 10 competitive congressional districts in the country. So it has to happen in a different way, and it has to also, I think, happen in electing a Senate that's so imbalanced convinced that you can do these things and you can push them through. I don't think, I love your optimism, but beating a Republican in a newly cut district in Nashville who won by 14 points is no easy task, and it's a shame that it isn't. Justin Pearson, who was just elected to the state house in Tennessee, who's someone, Cenk, who will come on your radar eventually, will likely be the next congressman from Memphis when that happens. An impressive person. He's a grassroots guy who blocked a pipeline in Memphis. I did that story. Completely upended a big Byhalia pipeline that was backed by 2 big oil companies, and through grassroots action was able to do that. I think grassroots action is going to have to be a part of this as well. And I know you say that it's running uphill, but so too is beating a 14-point margin in a race.
But bottom line is, guys, however you do it, you have to take at least one of them out of power, and you have to do it on this issue. Like, for example, if you did it to Lauren Boebert, who has the same exact Christmas card, it wouldn't really count because Boebert might have lost for any number of reasons, and she was already in a super close race. So if you find a district where someone's only up by 4 or 5, a Republican, but they have the same kind of attitude and the same kind of school shooting in their district, by all means. And by the way, there's so many school shootings, unfortunately, you might be able to find a couple of more, right? But you've got to take someone out politically, we don't do right-wing nonsense, politically, and then you're gonna have action. Otherwise, you'll never get any action, in my opinion. All right, Ray, any other thoughts on that?
I guess just I keep hearing this sort of idea that because these, inactions or when pieces of legislation like the Don't Say Gay bill or the Stop Woke Act or whatever other BS they're pushing through in Florida are being passed at the state level, there's this sort of narrative around it that it's because it's popular with the voters, which I think, is sort of undermined when we see protests like this happening in these districts and in these states. And their ability to do this is because they control the legislator. It doesn't necessarily mean that even the people who are voting for these, Republican state reps or state senators or even the governor, wholeheartedly support the things they're passing. They're able to do it efficiently just because they have such a stranglehold on their legislators. And if they have the governorship as well, then that's just the icing on top of the cake. But yeah, so I just sort of want to point out, especially with the story, that people who live in these places are upset about the things that are happening and they're protesting. So sort of casting this, all of these pieces of legislation passing in these states or the, representatives refusing to take action as being representative of the people that they are supposed to be representing, it's just not true.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, Ray. So last thing on this is, look guys, unfortunately media oftentimes misrepresents this just in the same way that Ray Vaughn is talking about there. The reality is if you look at the polling, one of the highest numbers we've ever had, 57% of Americans say generically we need more gun control. Now, when you say we need more gun control generically, usually people in America have disfavored that because they're like, well, generically, I don't know if I want more gun control, right? Now people are saying, no, I do know, I want it. Yeah, I definitely want it. And then when you get into the specifics, universal background checks polls at over 90%. Over 80% of Republicans want it, okay? Red flag laws, a poll in the 80s, over 70% of Republicans want it. And then on assault weapons, I've seen polls between 50 and 67%. There was a recent Pew poll at 60%. 60% of Americans wanting it. If you're gonna run a political campaign on that issue, it's gotta be good enough. 90%, 80%, these numbers have to be good enough that number one, the media shouldn't misrepresent it. The American people actually do want gun control. They don't want every kind of gun control. We can get into more of the specifics later. Like if you said take away all guns, that would not be popular in America, right? But the 3 that are super obvious that I just told you, yes, Americans definitely want that. And so, but also a note to Democratic politicians, run on the issue. Why do you not run on an issue where over 90% of the electorate and over 80% of even Republicans are on your side? You should be banging the drums on universal background check and red flag laws at a bare minimum. Okay, all right, we got to take a break here, guys. So let's take a quick break here. When we come back, some of the fun stories that I promised you guys, including the hilarious Lauren Boebert, Dave Rubin interview. We'll be back. Back on TYT. First of all, wherever you get, we call it linear. You might call it something else, but like your Roku's, Pluto's, YouTube TVs, Samsung TVs, you'll find our 24-hour channel. So if you want to watch in your living room and you've got one of those things, by all means, fire it up. Type in TYT or search for TYT in those outlets, and you'll find us. And that's great if you can watch there as well. All right, so let me go to members. Shy Coltrane 42 says, Ray, bring her badass self. I'm here for it. Just to be accurate, the badass is with 2 Z's instead of S's. I believe in accuracy in reporting. Dragon with a Girl Tattoo says, the AR-15 was designed to kill as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. That is literally what it was designed to do. Not for feral hogs or varmint, it was for people, and it was to be a lethal killing machine that got there as quickly as possible and did as much damage. Nostra Science says, attacks on Cenk and TYT are starting to show up on QAnon, Christian nationalist and far-right MAGA evangelical Facebook Bible nut sites, meaning you're getting to them. Well, that's not that surprising because we're among the very few people who aggressively fight back against Republicans. I mean, certainly MSNBC doesn't. They wouldn't know aggressive if they slapped them across the face. And then among the online folks, I don't know, man. Anyways, I'll leave that alone. But if you want to quote the Bible, I can quote the Bible with you, and nothing gets under their skin more than that, for example. So when I tell them the Bible is definitely pro-abortion, you look at Numbers 5:11 through 31, and it says if your wife, you think your wife cheated on you, make sure that a priest gives her an abortion and God will perform it. I didn't say it, God said it, so look it up. And that drives them crazy when I say stuff like that, because they know it's true. And so have at it, brothers. And by the way, if they're coming for me politically, rhetorically, etc., they are very late to the party. Okay, so come on in, there's a lot of people here. Enjoy the hors d'oeuvres. All right, Michael Gonzalez says right after Michael left, I love Michael. DC Dreams, sorry, hard to pronounce the handle, says this is why I love you and contribute, Cenk, break it down. We appreciate it. I really do appreciate you saying nice things like that about our coverage and how we break down the stories for you guys. Galaxy Imp says, Ravana is looking fierce today, that hair is on fire. There's a number of emojis attached. All right, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Ravana, and who is this? Brett Ehrlich. All right, Brett, great to see you.
There's a lot of weather happening in the country right now. We might lose Ray, who knows? There's a lot of weather happening. So Jackson White, who was supposed to be on the show, had some power outage issues, and so I'm filling in. we will reschedule him for later. And thank you to Michael Schur, who stepped out of the war room that he might contribute to today's power panel a little extra. So thank you, Michael.
All right, there you go. That's why Brett's here. Rayvana's got more news.
Yeah, it's definitely looking ominous and evil outside my window right now, so hopefully I do not lose my power. But another place where it's looking ominous and evil is the state of Florida. Let's watch.
I'd also like to talk a little bit about this misnomer of a heartbeat, the heartbeat bill. What I have in my hand here is a Tic Tac. At 6 weeks, a human fetus is about half the size of this Tic Tac, 4 millimeters high.
That's Dr. Nancy Statt testifying before a Florida State Senate committee considering a 6-week abortion ban, also known as a heartbeat bill. But does a fetus really have a heartbeat at 6 weeks?
4 millimeters. It does not have a face, so there's no looking at a face in an ultrasound. And in fact, the ultrasonographer is correct. It is so small in certain individuals, and based on where it's attached in the uterus, you can't see it. You have to come back. And there is no heart, there is no lungs, there is no brain. It doesn't have toes. It looks more like a tadpole. What you detect with the ultrasound machine is the electrical activity of the cells that will become the sinoatrial node that's pumping each of our hearts right now, hopefully, unless you all have a pacemaker.
It's nice to see somebody actually stating facts to these Republican lawmakers who seem to do nothing but lie. But unfortunately, the doctor's statements don't matter much to Florida's culture warriors because the near total abortion ban bill passed its committee and is expected to pass the state Senate any day now. Now, Jezebel reported that in addition to banning the procedure for most people, the bill requires rape and incest victims to bring in documentation certifying that they've sufficiently reported the crime perpetuated against them. The reporting is deemed adequate. They may be allowed an abortion up to 15 weeks. Now, I want to take a second to say most people who are raped or are the victims of incest do not report it to the police. So this, supposed carve out, these exceptions for those cases isn't actually going to serve that purpose. These people, for a myriad of reasons, this bill isn't going to change those reasons that people do not report rape or incest to the police. So most of those survivors will still not be able to get an abortion under this law. Now, that being said, it's also unclear where these abortions will be performed because we've seen in states with similar bans, the clinics dwindle and most hospitals don't provide abortions. Now, Florida Republicans also, of course, because it's Florida, snuck in another horrible provision into this bill. They gave $25 million to crisis pregnancy centers. HuffPost reported the Republicans argue that the $25 million will be used for services to support pregnant women and their children. But anti-abortion pregnancy centers, sometimes referred to as crisis pregnancy centers, are known for peddling misinformation based on religious rhetoric that is not medically accurate. Just as an example, a lot of these clinics provide false information on the risks of abortion. They drastically increase the chances of death by abortion. I mean, they inflate the number to an insane level. They also provide faulty information on fetal development. So essentially it's like you have a 45-year-old man within your womb on day 1 of being pregnant. I mean, you have to see the things that they're handing out to understand just how insanely ridiculous and the level of medical misinformation that these centers are providing people. And Florida just decided to give these centers $25 million of taxpayer money. Now, the Republicans also rejected an amendment to the provision that would have called for all the organizations that receive the funding to use only licensed ultrasound technicians. So they don't even want the properly licensed people receiving this money. Any schmuck on the street who wants to open a crisis pregnancy center can receive this money with no training. It's insane. But what's even worse than all of that is that Florida, with it, currently with its 15-week abortion ban, was one of the most liberal states in that region. So as a result of this, women from neighboring states would travel to Florida for their reproductive care. But Jezebel reported that the states above Florida, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia and South Carolina have either outright bans or are only allowed to provide care up to 6 weeks. To find the next potential clinic, you'd have to travel to North Carolina or Ohio or Kansas, depending on what path you take out of Florida. And states are already working on banning interstate travel for abortion. So even people who were able to travel might not be able to travel anymore. And one example of a state doing that is Idaho, and they're poised to be the first to do this. They have a bill that would create an entire new genre of crime dubbed abortion trafficking, which aims to limit minors' ability to travel for abortion care without parental consent. So it would punish any adult who drives a minor across state lines for an abortion. The crime is driving with them in the car in Idaho. Now, HuffPost also reported on this and said Idaho already has some of the most extreme abortion restrictions on the books, with nearly all abortions banned in the state and an affirmative defense law that essentially asserts any doctor who provides an abortion is guilty until proven innocent. Now, another side effect of these abortion bans is that the states passing them are losing doctors.
Okay.
So.
Yep. So let me get in on a bunch of this stuff. So number one, the country is overwhelmingly pro-choice. Recent Pew survey says that only 37% of Americans say that they want abortion illegal in all or almost all cases. They're not even in all cases, okay? And 61% say they want it to be legal in almost all cases. So, but when you get into the category of, hey, it should be legal, but within a certain number of weeks, that's an enormous number. So that's where the great majority of the country is. A certain number of weeks where it should be legal, and at some point it should be illegal. The people who agree with that, by the way, are people on the left and Democrats. Roe v. Wade said that abortion should be illegal, basically, in the third trimester. So basically, you're the outer edge. So when Republicans lie to you and say, oh, they want abortions up until the moment of birth or after birth abortions, there's no such thing, and they're lying. No, the outer edge is about in the ballpark of about 24 weeks, okay? So now the Republicans are saying, hey, let's make it 6 weeks. But at 6 weeks, as the doctor just explained to you, you don't even know you're pregnant from a lot of these pregnancies. You first find out somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. So putting it at 6 weeks means you're banning all abortions. It's just a trick to say that it's 6 weeks, right? So look, again, most Americans would want it to be around 24, according to the polling, but it's only state legislators that are passing these laws. When you go to even the most red states, Kansas, Montana, etc., and you put it to the people, the theoretically conservative people of Montana, Kentucky, Kansas, all said, no, we're pro-choice. We want the ability to choose. So they don't, these guys actually only represent their own base. So the most extreme of the most extreme. So that's why, guys, they don't even care about medical information or facts. Like, at 6 weeks, as she explained, it's half a tic tac. Half a tic tac. So, and there is no heart. They call it a heartbeat. Bill, there's no heart. At 6 weeks, there's no heart at all. Okay, so it's sad for our country that we've gotten to a point, and I know this is true in a lot of issues, but it's very true in this one, where one side just says, I don't care what's true. I'm just gonna call it a heart. I'm gonna pretend that that they have some sort of choice at 6 weeks, and then I'm gonna set up these pregnancy centers that I know for a fact are lying through their teeth to people when they're most vulnerable, most looking for real medical advice, and we're going to fund that deception, and they do it on purpose. So it sucks that there's a debate between truth and lies when there should be a debate between two sides that disagree on issues and opinions and policies, but agree that there are facts in the world. But that's not the debate we're having in Florida for sure. Brett.
Who wants this bill? And the answer is very few people. And those people are folks that just want to sit there and do nothing and feel like they have saved the world. And the Republican apparatus knows that. And that's why they call it the heartbeat bill, because no one wants to stop a heartbeat, right? And it's tough because I just got done hearing all of these Republicans tell me that Fauci's an idiot and they're gonna trust the science on this. And when a scientist gets up there, when an actual doctor gets up there and tells you that everything they've told you is wrong, I thought they would run and say, oh my God, thank you so much for that information. I'm gonna change my ways. I'm on the other side of this now that you've explained to me. Obviously, that's not it, because so much of the anti-abortion debate is this sense of moral superiority. And it has been completely used in a way that is counter to popular opinion. I wish they could just make these folks feel good about themselves by passing a law that bans abortion among Christian fundamentalists. I think that's a great law, and I think everybody would support that law. And the fact is, even if you had that law, they would still violate it. The same way these Christian fundamentalists say that they're trying to protect young boys and girls from being, groomed by anyone, and then the priest touches them behind the altar. They're gonna violate it anyway, and then they get that drama. They get that sense of moral superiority over each other. I think it's a giant win-win. And that's why I think in these wildly gerrymandered districts, in these wildly gerrymandered states, where one party who doesn't get that much of a majority ends up with a super majority in the House, I think this is great, because then they'll start passing bills that really benefit the people who want them, and nobody else does.
Yeah, last point here, guys. Idaho's saying now, we also don't care what the Constitution says. We know that we can't make a bill making it illegal to transport a woman to get an abortion across state lines, because it's a federal issue, not a state issue. So they're going very likely to pass a bill that says if you drive a minor to a state line and you're not the parents, well, we're gonna prosecute you and you might get 2 to 5 years in prison. So now if you have to leave Idaho before you get pregnant if you're underage. I mean, look, I don't want anybody underage getting pregnant, period. And I don't want any of these families having to make these incredibly hard decisions. But you're an aunt, an uncle, a grandmother, someone who cares about this kid, and you don't know. A lot of families have abusive relationships. Maybe they don't want to tell their dad for a very, very good reason. Who knows? There's 1,000 reasons. But if you try to help that young girl in a time when she most needs it, they're gonna put you in prison. So these red states are turning into these Taliban-like rule where now it's almost an open air prison and you're not even allowed to leave the state. And if you do to get a procedure, the people helping you might be put away. I mean, you want to talk about political prisoners, they talk about January 6th, the guys trespassed, broken the laws, talked about hanging people, etc. I mean, arresting people for going to another state to get help, that's a political prisoner. And no one voted for it. Even if you, look, put it up as a ballot measure in Idaho, you're still gonna lose. Pro-choice wins in almost every state, yet these extremists are taking away women's freedoms at every turn. And it's so obvious that it's part of their political agenda that has nothing to do with the actual abortion issue, but has to do with controlling women and their lives. All right, we got to take a break.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, when we come back, we got to do the Lauren Boebert story. Speaking of underage pregnancies, that I've been promising you all day. So come right back for that.
I am scary. I am threatening. I'm Darth Vader.
All right, it's a pretty cool thing that happened yesterday. Our episode about Trump's indictment, our podcast episode on it, #1 in the government vertical. Not a big deal, beating BBC, CBS News, Daily Beast, and a lot more. Well, beating everybody in that category. Yeah. So check out our podcast network. It's taken off, and I think you guys will love it. And we got a couple of shows on there too that are not part of the video shows, like Francesca Fiorentini's Bituation Room. So check out all the shows that you can. While you're doing that, speaking of audio shows, Dr. Richie's got a Sunday show on Sirius XM. It's on Urban View. It's channel 126, and it's at 1 o'clock. He said, we got to get this straightened out. There's different times on my sheet and on there. But anyway, check out SiriusXM Urban View, Dr. Rashad Ritchie, or The Weekend, obviously Indisputable's on during the week here, right here on the TYT network. All right, let me go to YouTube Super Chat as I just closed it out. In fact, YouTube member section, Donald James X with a funny comment. I simp for Cenk. I like that as. Not sure that's the reason most people like me. Okay, if they like me at all. But I appreciate it, brother. I do. Okay, now going to Super Chat. Chris Birch says, Cenk, I bought your book on Audible last night. So glad it's available there. It's hard to read with neuropathy. I'm thrilled you were reading it. Have a good weekend, bud. Thank you for being a hero. I appreciate that, Chris, and I appreciate you buying the book too. You could, everybody, tyt.com/justice. You can pre-order it, and yes, there's a Audible version of it too that I'm going to record soon. Okay, Trisha Briggs says, my right-wing family members have been radio silent for the past 2 days. They know I'm dying to rub it in, and then I believe there's some sort of LOL attached there. Trisha says, I'm terrible. Shane McAndrew says, Cenk, would you agree that Matt Taibbi's transformation into a right-winger is complete after him defending Trump for being indicted? I don't know, man. Matt and Glenn are enormous disappointments, but I have nothing further to say. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Brett, and Rayvana with you guys. We're gonna read a couple of quick super chats. Shroud says, Cenk, you have one. I now see the Dems as bad and the Republicans as really bad and no longer trust mainstream media. Anna's awesome. Look, guys, it's not about labeling them bad. It's about making sure you guys get the actual news and so that you could fight for yourself and for your rights and for each other. But I appreciate that you kept an open mind and arrived at the correct conclusion that they're not really working for us. Appalachian Crochet Design says, protect choice, Ohio. Yes, there's some important elections coming up. Also in Wisconsin, we're gonna have a great conversation about it on The Conversation. You can check out that podcast as well with Brianna Wu, because Rebellion PAC is getting involved in that race. It's on April 4th. It's a court case, it's an election for the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, but that will, in practicality, determine whether you have choice or no choice in Wisconsin. So make sure you're voting on April 4th. And if you can, support rebellionpac.com. And then lastly, mostly plant-based writes in, make accountability great again. Okay, now that's a MAGA I could stand behind and fitting for the times. All right, Ray, what's the next story?
Yeah, we've been talking about it, we've been teasing it, and it's time for Lauren Boebert.
I have 2 boys with me. My oldest son is expecting his son any day.
Right.
Yeah, so he couldn't come to DC.
I know. You're gonna be, wait, how old are you?
I'm 36.
You're gonna be a 36-year-old grandma.
Yes, yes. I'm a GG, Dave. I'm a GG.
How does that feel?
You know, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So my mom, she was 18 when she had me. I was 18 when I had Tyler, and now he's 18. And one of his first comments to me was, Mom, it's hereditary.
Yeah.
I was gonna make a comment about stupidity being hereditary, but you know, I'm not that petty. But you just watched Lauren Boebert tell Dave Rubin that her 18-year-old son is about to become a father. She's also about to reveal how she picks and chooses who the rules of Christianity do apply to and who they do not apply to. So, but first, let's watch her explain her family situation a little bit better.
Obviously, I'm a Christian, and there are standards that we like to uphold, but none of us do it perfectly. One of the biggest things that I look to is him who knows to do right and doesn't, it's sin. And I mean, there's things all throughout the week that I know is right to do, and sometimes I don't do them. And so we can nitpick what the Bible says is right and wrong, but I think just having that heart posture of wanting to serve God and do the right thing is so important. And would I chose a different path? Of course, but this is where we're at, and we're all embracing it, and we're so happy.
It's so important to follow God if it suits you, if you're feeling it. Sometimes you're not feeling it. In that case, it's okay. You can do whatever you want, according to Lauren Boebert. But just quickly, let's talk about what the Bible actually says about sex before marriage. And Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 2 says, "A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord." So that's Lauren Boebert's Bible, and apparently for 3 generations of people in her family, they've decided that they don't want to play with that part of the Bible. That's not in their version of Christianity, apparently. But she's such a hypocrite. They're all hypocrites, but she's really happy to chastise other people for making life-changing decisions while they're young. But apparently it doesn't apply to her and her family. Let's look at this tweet from Lauren Boebert. "We require people to be 21 to purchase alcohol beverages and 21 to purchase tobacco products. Why is it so unreasonable to require people to reach a certain level of maturity before making life-altering decisions about their sexuality and identity?" Which one thing I just want to point out is that she says life-altering decisions about their sexuality as if as if experimenting with whether or not you're gay is a life-altering decision that you can never go back on. And once you decide you want to experiment, that's it. That's life-altering. You're done. You can't change your mind down the road. But I would, of course, she's super ignorant. I wouldn't expect her to be precise with her language. But like most Republicans, Lauren Boebert wants everyone else to follow a rule that she or her son wouldn't follow themselves.
Yeah.
God bless them. Thank you for them. But it's time the church speaks up. The church has relinquished too much authority to government. We should not be taking orders by the government, from the government. The government needs to be looking at the church and saying, how do we do this effectively?
So there's Lauren Boebert. Cenk, thoughts on this so far?
So the government shouldn't take orders from the church. No, I'm sorry, the church shouldn't take orders from the government, but the government presumably should take orders from the church. Okay, but wait, the church says that all you bastards should, all the consequences that flow from that, whatever that Bible verse was, banned from the church, presumably segregated somewhere, etc. I mean, look, it's not my family, it's your bastard family, right? I don't view them as bastards. I don't, that's, you made choices and your son made choices, your mom made choices. I'm okay with choices, but you say the church should rule. Well, the church says you're a bastard and your son's a bastard and their kid's a bastard. And so that's not my church, that's your church. So should we be ruled by it or shouldn't we? And isn't it interesting that they passed over 600 laws against the LGBTQ community in the last 5 years at the state level? Because the Bible, okay, if we want to hate gays and trans people, we get to hate them because of the Bible. Okay, well now, how about your bastard ass? The Bible doesn't like you either, right? Oh, well, what are you, nitpicking the Bible? Oh, I see, when it's you, it's nitpicking the Bible. When it's LGBTQ folks and you want to gin up fear and hatred, all of a sudden you care so much about the Bible and the government should be run by the Bible. Guys, even if you're the deepest Christian, you can't see that they're frauds? You can't see that they're phonies? No, by the way, some of you see it and a lot of you don't, because you think, no, those rules don't apply to me. God doesn't mean me. God means like these evildoers. I have good intent. I have good, what? No, that's for the libs. God wants to own the libs, not us.
I think this was one of my favorite clips of all time, because what she means when she tweets, like, why is it so unreasonable to require people to reach a certain level of maturity before making these life-altering decisions? She forgot the word certain people, you people. She wants to control other people. And I love that. The way that she started talking when, I mean, it's not her fault. She's up there toe to toe with intellectual titan Dave Rubin, asking her the tough questions like, what's it like to be a grandma? What's she gonna do? That's a tough question. And he just like made a face, and she knows it. She knows exactly where her hypocrisy lies. She loves it. She wants so much control over other people that she's willing to overlook her hypocrisy. And you know what? The Bible's got a verse for that. Micah 7:3, which is, why do you ignore the speck of sawdust in your eye? Or why are you calling out the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and ignoring the plank in your own? Yeah. She is completely hypocritical about this, and I love it. And I love religion. I think religion's great. I love the existential aspect of religion, where you kind of understand that you're part of a larger thing. Kierkegaard wrote about it. You recognize the thing that constituted you outside of yourself. It just gives you, it should serve to give you a larger perspective on things. But when she says, oh, sometimes I sin, I step outside the boundaries, but they want you to, they're okay with you sinning as long as at the end of the day, you recognize the power of the church over you.
Yeah.
That's all they care about. They only care about the power. And it is so crazy. And if we have time, I can go through, I was talking to Jordan Ewell about some of the weird stuff in the Bible, and he pointed out this great moment. Saul, when he was asking to get married, when David was asking to get married to Saul's kid, he said to David, the king desires no other dowry but 100 Philistine foreskins. And David was an overachiever, so he went out and got, according to the next verse, Samuel 18:27, he took his men out with him and went out and killed 200 Philistines and brought back 200 foreskins. So like this Bible that they want us to follow so dearly, they themselves pick and choose what they want to follow in it. And I don't think we should let them. So we should call out the hypocrisy whenever it happens.
No, I think that we should follow the Bible, and that's why the law in every state should be that abortion is legal. Numbers 5:11 through 31. The Bible is definitely 100% in favor of abortion. It says if your wife cheated on you, the priest will do a toxic potion, and it will cause her to miscarry. But it is not a natural miscarriage. It is a forced miscarriage. It is an abortion performed by the priest, and then God decides, did she cheat or didn't she cheat? If she didn't cheat, she doesn't get the abortion. But if she did cheat, and God knows obviously, he forces the abortion on her. I didn't make that up. It's in the Bible. You could read it 5:11 through 31. You could read it in my new book, Justice is Coming, okay? So it's a fact. You wanna be ruled by the Bible? Then we're a pro-choice country, period. It's not even close. The Bible is definitively pro-abortion. You can go read it. If you have eyes and you understand the English language, you'll be able to tell that they've been lying to you your whole life. The Bible says you should do an abortion if you think your wife cheated on you. Pure fact. Okay, so of course, but that's not convenient. We want to control women's lives, so we're gonna pretend that the Bible is against abortion when it's not remotely true. Number two, in that hilarious conversation between Dumb and Dumber, she kept saying like, I'm so glad my son made the right choice. And the little girl, I think she's tiny, she's underage, she made the right choice. And if they hadn't made the right choice, I would have helped them to make the right choice. Wait, why is this a choice? I thought you were against choice. Oh, when it comes to you, All of a sudden, it's a choice. Of course. And finally, Dave Rubin, did he challenge her that the state of Florida is discriminating against gay people like he is? That you can't even mention his existence in schools? Nope, didn't mention at all, because he's a coward and a pathetic one at that. All right, in the bonus episode, we have amazing stories that are kind of lighter. There's the QAnon conspiracy on what's happening in the diapers. Okay, and then China wants students to have a spring break where they have sex. Fascinating. I didn't see that the Chinese Communist Party, as everyone's calling it these days, was gonna go in that direction. But you can find out all about it if you're a member at tyt.com/join and become one, or if you're on YouTube, hit the join button below the video. We'll see you there.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, Dave.